Welcome and happy Veterans Day. Thank you to all our amazing veterans out there and who have served before. This day is for you. I'm John Chen. You're on an Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. And by the way, if you're out there, hey, hit the subscribe button, share, like, or comment. And oh, I'm so happy to report, finally, the YouTube channel is over 500 subscriptions. Keep it going. Thank you for all of you who have pushed the button. If you also want to subscribe and listen to this on your favorite podcast app, go to engagingvirtualmeetings.online and you can subscribe in one of 13 spots. Did you know Spotify is the number one spot, followed closely by Apple Podcasts, people who download this podcast? Now, I got an amazing guest here. He's got some serious social media cred, and we became really good friends through one of our good friends who, rest in peace, Bob Pike. We came closer, and I think that's something that Bob would want from his interactions, right? From him, we have become very, very good friends. So I'd love to introduce to you the one and only from Arizona, Dan Shinder.
Oh, me. How are you?
What's up, Dan?
Oh, everything's great. And you know what? Thank you indeed to all the veterans, because without them, we would not live in a world here where we can be entrepreneurs and have all the opportunities we have. So thank you, everybody who is serving now and or has served.
Yes. Yeah, so much more can't be said about that. One of my past coworkers, an Army sniper, I love the one thing he used to tell me. He goes, one of his big goals one day was to move 1 mile.
Move 1 mile.
But because he's a sniper, the whole key is he moved 1 mile in 24 hours completely undetected.
Wow, that's amazing. What an interesting stat. And Bob Pike was a veteran, bless his heart.
I didn't know that. I did. I saw the photographs in the replay,
Yeah.
and it was like I've known him for years, and I actually did not know that about him until
Interesting.
recently.
Yeah.
So,
Bob was not overt about a lot of things other than what he was doing at the time. You know what I mean? He
right.
was a police officer, he was a pastor, he was in the service, the Navy. I mean, what an amazing life that man had.
Yes, yeah, yes, and yes. And so, of course, Dan, you were met him through, I believe, the NSA, or National Speakers Association's Arizona chapter, of which he was a member of. And so,
That's
do us a
correct.
favor, for my friends who don't know you, Dan, take a moment, introduce yourself, who you are, and what you do.
Thank you. So I must be crazy. That's part of who I am. I must be crazy because my wife and I have a blended family of 11 kids, 19 grandkids, and I think this is the first public mention of the fact that we found out a couple months ago we're going to be great grandparents, which is weird because I'm only 40, right? Actually, no. But I have two businesses. The first will be 11 years old in January. Drum Talk TV. It's the largest online media company in the music industry, covering the world of drumming. And we focus on more than just drumming, but what we do is we do interviews of gold and platinum artists, up and coming artists, big educators. We do documentaries, we cover events in the industry, and a few other things. And one of my favorite things is that we curate content from our fans from over 100 countries. We reach 100 million people a year online. We have over 1 million followers on social. And I started another company that first year to teach people how to do what I've done. It's a marketing company called Advanced Social Marketing. It's not an agency, it's a marketing training company where I actually teach the strategies, because we did all that growth without spending a penny on advertising or boosting posts on social, and with total disregard of SEO. So in a nutshell, that's me. Oh, 2 cats and 3 dogs. I can't forget them.
Blended family of 11 kids. Do you want to say anything about that? Like, I think it's
Yeah.
something you're
So the
proud of.
youngest just turned 29 Monday, this past Monday, the 6th. And Stephen is my right hand man with Drum Talk TV. He's our chief content officer.
Uh-huh.
He does most of the publishing on our social channels and also screens what comes in through our website submissions and is also the producer behind the scenes. And he and I do a separate podcast called Yes Shift in the prog rock world. Don't worry, I'm not going to give you the rundown on all 11 kids. But Steve definitely has earned a special mention since he's the youngest and he's in his
Oh,
last year of his 30s now. The oldest is 48 and he's an entertainer. He's Morris Day in the show Purple Rain in Las Vegas, the tribute to Prince.
oh.
All wonderful people, all the kids, all the grandkids. And my wife and I met later in life after we got some experience and mileage under our belt, maybe a little extra mileage. For me, I should be called the Michelin Man or something. So yeah, there you go. That's a big part of the personal side.
Well, let's talk about was it Drum Talk TV? Now, when you started this, I mean, did you know it was going to grow, or is it just something that kind of happened? I would love to hear the genesis.
So I started it because, in part, because I was looking for something I couldn't find. What happened first was I started an online lesson show where I was doing lessons and I was very, very new to social media. However, before I published my first lesson with my own strategies, I had already acquired followers from over 60 countries. So I knew I was onto something strategic wise with marketing. Long story short, that morphed into something that my wife hammered me over the head with by saying, just do the interviews, just do the interviews, just do the interviews. And then Drum Talk TV was born out of that 11 years ago, coming this January. So, no, I did not know it was going to blow up the way it did, even though I had that first experience with the other thing. But as we got rolling, it was about be somewhere between month 7 and 9 where it
Hmm.
was pointed out to me that we were achieving 900% more online reach and engagement than everybody else in our space. And we were the only ones doing it 100% organically. Still are, by the way, almost 11 years in. So it was that inspired me to start the marketing training company. But I mentioned to someone in a meeting today, I
Hmm.
never aspired to have a million plus followers or reach 100 million people a year every year until we hit 500,000 followers. And that's what kind of opened my eyes. And I realized, I was able to step back and have some perspective and context. And I said, well, all we need to do is do that again. And we're at a million. Sounds easy, right?
Right.
By the way, people, if anyone ever tells you the platitude that falls out of their face that says, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, I'm going to wear my filter here. That's a BS because I love what I do and I work my tail off. Believe me, my whole team does. I'm sure you do too, John. You love what you do, and I see how hard you work.
Well, that's where the passion comes in, and the passion comes in because you're willing to put the extra time in because you love it somehow. Something about it you love, right? And
Yeah.
people can tell the difference, right? If you're grinding and you don't enjoy it and you want to get done at the end of the day, there's a complete difference versus that person who's geeking out over the little bit, the
Yeah.
detail. Like, and I think, you have a passion for drumming. So where did your passion for drumming come from? And by the way, I want to say hi to Joel Glickman, who's watching on us on Facebook Live. Yeah,
Hey,
where's that
Joe.
passion come from?
So I started playing when I was almost 7 and I got really good really quickly. I'm
Mm.
blessed with a magical ear. I can learn by ear, but I did learn how to read music and all that. And
Mm.
I actually wanted to be the next Jacques Cousteau. I wanted to be an oceanographer, but at 14, my father took me to see Led Zeppelin. And by about the third song, like I didn't have that Beatles moment. I had the Led Zeppelin moment. By the third song, I realized, oh, so that could be a job. And I told my parents that's what I wanted to do. We had to hit my mom with the paddles a couple times to revive her, but to her credit, my parents always supported me. A year later, she found an audition for what became my first paid tour of the United States as a drummer on a gig
Wow.
that opened for Blue Oyster Cult, Heart, Styx, Seals and Crops. I was 15 years old. So that passion came from partly the physicality of it, partly the creativity of it, partly the ability to learn my favorite songs and not only play to them, but play them in bands when I was younger, and then get into bands when I was older that played all original material. And music, music is just something I think it's like my wife says in one of our new videos, promoting something. She says everybody has been moved by music somehow in some way. You don't have to be a musician to be moved by music. Everyone has those songs or that album or that band that's part of the soundtrack of their life. And it touches people. It touches people. And I love, as the drummer and my backup band with bass, guitar, I love, as the drummer, seeing people bounce and move and dance, because they're not doing that to the guitar or a saxophone or a piano. I hate to burst any bubbles. They're doing it to the drums and the drummer. So it's gratifying on so many levels, whether it's a hand drum like those up there,
Right.
or
Yeah.
a full-blown crazy obnoxious progressive rock kit like mine that has a gong and two timpani drums and drums from 8 inches to 20 inches, and everything in between.
Because you can, right? And that's
Yeah, it's
like
fun. It's fun. And I think most passion for people, I think, is driven by fun and something that resonates with them. Our dogs and cats.
yeah.
I'm really passionate about our dogs and cats.
Aw.
Horticulture. I grow flowers to that's part of what keeps me off the news when I'm not working or doing anything having to do with Drum Talk TV or advanced social marketing. I'm piddling around in my greenhouse or the garden. It just gives me so much peace to do that. And if someone were to go to my personal Facebook page and scroll down, 80% of what I post is my dogs and cats, and most of them interacting. They play with each other, and butterflies on my flowers. And I don't post hardly anything business related, whereas everyone else in my space, in either space, posts their marketing company or their drumming, 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 drumming. My personal page is my personal page. I'm very open about a lot of things while being very introverted and private at the same time, which probably doesn't make any sense to watching
Do
this now.
do you
But it's
watch
true.
any of the other pet channels,
I
right?
do.
Personalities. I'd love to hear who are some of your favorites. So, my girlfriend Donna loves Layla the Boxer. If you haven't seen Layla the
I
Boxer,
have seen that. And one of the things I put on is a video that's live on YouTube. I can't think of the name of the channel, but it's basically a 24/7 bird feeder. And the cats jump up and they're doing this on the flat screen. They want to get to the birds, or they're just curiously looking, or they'll go behind the screen thinking they'll sneak up on the bird or something. I love stuff like that.
here was one too. So we got to meet this. You'll hopefully you'll find this fascinating. We got to meet the social media people from Monterey Bay Aquarium.
Oh, wow.
And these people here, let me just show one of their. This is like I think their third most viewed video is this one. Squid.
Oh, the squid. Yeah. You know
Right?
why? I think I know why.
Go.
The motion is very meditative and peaceful. Jellyfish, squid,
Right.
seahorses, that same sort of vibe. Yeah, exactly. It brings your vibe down and centers your energy. Yeah, I really believe that that's why. And it's fascinating. When do we see that? It's not outside at the park. It's not at the grocery store. It's not when we're driving. Hey, squid. Hopefully.
But you know that this is just someone pointed a camera at an aquarium for 2 hours and clocked 2.9 million views.
That's awesome. I love that. And I love the Monterey Bay Aquarium. I've been there. It's an amazing place. They're featured in a Star Trek movie,
Yeah, yes, yes,
right?
yes,
How
yes.
immortalized can you become, right? In a Star Trek movie, for goodness sakes.
Star Wars next. Yeah, it's got like
Right.
a plexiglass that's like what 6, 7 feet, wide.
Yeah,
There's
it was
crazy stuff there.
a clear aluminum that Scotty came across. Remember
Right,
that
right.
he actually introduced to them coming from the future. That's what it was. Yeah, transparent aluminum.
So you have some sci-fi on you too. You have some
Absolutely.
on
Yeah.
you. All right. Well, okay. Uh, so so you have Drum Talk TV, right? And I'm curious. So, oh yeah, people got to know. I want to know, right? I told you I got to 500 subscribers on YouTube,
Yeah.
and while you might sneeze that in like your back mind,
I don't though. I really don't. We all
what?
start with one and it's usually us.
Right.
What's weird with 1.2 or 3 million followers on Facebook now, I remember who the second person was. And
Ooh.
it's not a relative or anybody. Her name's Kimberly Box. I don't remember number 5 or 17 or 117 or 10,042, but I remember number 2. But go on. And we all take those steps, and those steps are the same steps that lead to 500, 10,000, 25,000, and every follower slash subscriber matters.
So I know a lot of people, especially when they start, like have this dream too, and they have that dream where I need a million. Follow fill in the blank, right?
Right.
TikTok, fill in your social media, and it's not as easy as it looks.
It's
I
not.
think it's like authors, right? The like I'm an author of a book, and so an author of a book, the average in America is 300 books per author, right? When you average it all out, and so
Wow.
there's only what less than 10% get to 10,000, and there's only 100 authors who actually get to a million. And everybody dreams of, oh, I'm this best-selling author, blah blah blah. But
Right.
there's only a few. Like I got a chance to meet Lencioni. He sold 6 million.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Gilbert, who sold 16 million in
Yeah.
one book. And so I'm just kind of curious from Dan Shinder's list, like, what are some of the top things that you tell people who want to grow their stuff?
The number one thing is to have your eyes on the right ball.
Mm,
And to grow a brand simply with your eye on the ball of how many followers you want to aspire to, I kind of look at it the same way as money. If you do everything for the right reasons, and those right reasons being giving value, serving your community, your target market, the
yeah,
rest will come. I didn't start Drum Talk TV to reach 500,000 or a million followers or reach 100 million people a year
yeah.
every year. I didn't start it for that, and it was never really a goal. So I think that should be quite far down the list, number 5, somewhere between 5 and 10. Whereas I have recognizing your value,
Yeah.
who it's for, and convincing them with great content that you do have something for them that will positively affect their life in some way. I had a cooking show on TV years ago, and about 7 years ago, around this time, I was really experiencing some angst with Drum Talk TV as an entrepreneur, as a business person.
Sure.
The Drum Talk TV guy side of me was still having a lot of fun, but on the business side, it was really getting a little. And I thought, well, if I've done what I've done in drums and music, what if I started another cooking show, because more people are into food than. And I teetered on making that shift, but I didn't. So my point is, I knew what my takeaways were going to be. When I had my first cooking show, the takeaways weren't just here's how to make XYZ. It was the history of the dish, the etymology of it,
Yeah.
things like that. Things like the eggplant existed as a table ornament from the time Thomas Jefferson brought it from Europe until like the 1950s. People didn't even think in America to cook it, you
Yeah.
know, which is crazy to people in West Africa and Asia and whatnot. And it's not even called the eggplant there. So going back, to more clearly answer your question, it's all about giving value and doing what you do for the right reasons, and the rest will come. I don't believe in build it and they will come, but if you give value, they will keep returning, and they'll share it with like-minded people. And that's how we grew organically over the last 10 years, 11 months, and 10 days. But who's counting?
What's consistently some of the key pieces of value that you've seen on Drum Talk TV so that people have an idea of like how do I get my value? Right.
That's great. Not being clinical is one of them. Not being too clinical, not being too academic. We share a lot of fun. And I'm going to tell you folks, as someone who has 11 kids, 19 grandkids, 3 dogs, 2 cats, and a great grandchild on the way, you cannot please everybody with the same thing. You need to have varied content that A is still a reflection of your brand and what your value is, but is also a reflection of who you serve. So if you sell this, whatever this is, not everybody who needs this one thing is the same. Someone who's 50 that grew up in Manhattan and never left the city is going to be different from someone who's 23 and lives in Los Angeles who's traveled to 18 countries.
Yeah.
Just as a not crude example, but a real one. So different personas in your audience are going to follow you for different reasons. And it's important to learn who your audience is and provide varied content around not only that same thing, but one of the biggest mistakes in content marketing or any brand on social and even with email marketing
Mhm.
is that they post mostly or only what's for sale, what's for sale, what's for sale. You
Mm.
have to give value. You have to give people a reason to keep following you. If you turned on the radio and you heard your favorite song, but then 20 minutes of commercials, then another song, then 20 minutes of commercials, how long would you listen to that radio station? You'd probably deprogram it from your car or your computer. It's the
Yeah.
same thing. You promote about 20 to 30% of the time, give value and fun. The other 70 to 80% is really the key. And that's a big way of how we surpassed everybody in our space in that first year. And the newest brand behind us, John, was 10 years old. So here we come as the newcomer 10 years after the newer comer
Yeah.
before us. And we just blew everybody away because they were too busy advertising what's for sale, what's for sale, what's for sale. And it's quite frankly run by a bunch of old farts, even, even older than I am. And they just still have not embraced what content marketing is really about and how to build that relationship with your audience and keep them wanting more. That's the key. It's not that hard to get followers. The hardest thing is keeping them.
Oh, well, good.
And
That's a great question then too. Uh, right. I'd love to hear about churn and right. I'm curious. What is Dan Schinder's definition of engagement?
I can't even say it, so I don't know.
Teen, right?
Definition, the meaning of engagement is when people comment. That's the number one real definition.
Oh,
But comments and shares are what
yeah.
matters most. There are people that will be innocent bystanders and never comment, but they'll share it with like-minded people, or they're helping you rack up those video views, but
Yeah.
they'll never comment. But the comments are number one because that's where we learn from our audience.
Hmm.
And you got to ask questions in your posts. That's where you learn from your audience and find out what do they like, what do they not like, what do they want more of. You can even bluntly ask, hey, when you buy something online, how do you pay? Is it PayPal? Do you use a debit card, a credit card?
Yeah.
You can learn anything you want by asking your audience if you have built trust and likability. I'll give you an example. Years ago, we posted this meme that was a woman, a young lady at a purple drum set in a redwood forest. I saw that picture. I turned up the saturation. I put it in our meme template. And the meme itself said, "You're never alone if you have drums." But the post said, "Has drumming helped you get through challenging times in life?" And then I looked at it again and I changed drumming to playing music. So it's more universal. And I thought, I don't know if people are going to respond to this because we had built a certain level of trust with a huge amount of our followers. They felt comfortable spilling out their guts. Yes, playing music, the trumpet, drums, saxophone helped me get through being a
Right.
latchkey kid at home and not seeing my parents till the evening. Helped me get through my dad leaving when I was young, never knew who he was. Helped me get through my dog passing away. Helped me get through my wife leaving me, taking the house, the Cadillac, the Porsche, and the milkman. And when I saw these comments, I realized where we had elevated the brand in the trust of our followers' eyes. And that's very important. So that's why I say comments are number one,
Mm.
shares are number two, because that's you growing organically. Number three is video views,
Mhm.
because if you're getting video views, that means people are watching. And if there's a quick drop off rate, there's two reasons why. Either the first 10 or 20 seconds of the video is not engaging enough, and I'll get back to that if I may, Or it's so compelling and convincing that they jump off the video, they click on your call to action and go do whatever that is. Hopefully, you're all using calls to action in your posts, right? Buy my book, learn more, sign up for my e-list, go see more videos, whatever it is. But going back to the first 10 or 20 seconds, if people aren't compelled in the first really 10 to 20 seconds, they're not going to watch the rest of the video. And they'll watch less of your videos if the next 20 videos are the same. So I used to like, I don't want to say crack up, but my heart would feel a little shadow across it when I'd see people submit videos to us on Drum Talk TV, which fans can do, and they'd
Mhm.
say, "Here's my video." And when you get to 1 minute and 38 seconds, that's the best part. And I'm thinking, people aren't going to start with that. This
Yes,
is
the
not a
first
Steven
10
Spielberg.
seconds, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's not a Steven Spielberg movie where people are going to sit through some lofty intro, the logo, where it was filmed, who did the editing. No one gives a. They want to just see great drumming. Do NASCAR fans want to see a driver posed leaning against his or her car? No, they want to see the sliding sideways in the third corner. You know, you really have to understand your audience and understand what works from the user standpoint
Mm.
and the algorithmic standpoints of the platform you're using. Which algorithms can you leverage that'll help you? Which ones do you need to dance around and avoid? And there's no manual to this, well, other than my marketing training course. But the platforms don't have a manual that says we have a new algorithm that's going to screw with your head and make you pay to reach more people. They don't do that.
All
I
right.
know
Well,
that was kind of a long answer, but I like to be thorough, you know.
I've heard actually. I heard somebody else say shares were number one. So you are in a like a little counterculture that I love that comments are number one, and you
Because you
get
got to learn from your audience. You
yeah
really do. It's
yeah
imagine 1 million followers. It's
yeah
like I have 1 million people in a focus group. Not
yeah
that everybody sees every post. Let's keep it real, but still, it's, you know, and you have to do this. You have to think outside the box. Stop doing what everyone else is doing just because that's what they're doing. That
right.
doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. But a lot of people are using, and I'm sorry, I don't want to offend anybody, but a lot of people are using hashtags that are what I call generic. Hashtag TGIF, hashtag drummer, hashtag entrepreneur, hashtag. Those hashtags don't do anything for the content creators. They
Right.
work for the platform. So think about this. If 400,000 people on the 3 billion people on Facebook in one day, in 1 week, in 1 month, if 400,000 people use hashtag entrepreneur once, how is your post going to be found if you use that too? It's lost in the grains of sand on the beach of all those same hashtags. So I teach people to brand their hashtags.
Yeah.
People will say, well, how will they know
Exactly.
to look for it? Hang with me. Don't worry about that. Number one, it links the like similar content together.
Right.
And when they do click it or search it, only your BS will show up, not everyone else's BS. and,
All right.
and
Well,
it's so important. And that's how I grew Drum Talk TV. A lot of this. I use uncommon sense,
yes.
some critical thinking, and logic. And I looked at what everyone else was doing. I said, that doesn't make sense. I'm going to try this. I tested stuff. Don't be afraid to test things. And
So
don't be afraid to be called out by your friends. That's not how it works. Don't take advice from someone who hasn't done what you want to do.
I did call out a friend today though. It's funny. We actually knew each other from 2012, and I did call her out for a bad mic. Right. She was
Oh,
always beating it,
fair game.
but like there's it was really bad. And
Well,
and
that's because talking online is so new to everyone.
well, but you know what? She came back and did me a favor and said nobody has complained about my mic, and I said you were like this thin close to not being understandable.
Yeah, and no one wants to be the insulter or the out caller. Everyone wants to, and I'm like you. I want to help people.
All right.
My lighting in here was all yellow because I had regular incandescent bulbs.
Right.
I
Right.
saw someone in a regular Zoom meeting 4 years ago. I said, "What kind of lights are you using?" She said, "Daylight bulbs." I'm thinking, okay, where do I? She says, "Just go to Walmart. They're the same as regular bulbs. Daylight bulbs change the whole hue of this room." It's
Yes.
like I have a skylight. I don't even have windows in this room. My
Yeah.
wife won't let me carry cash, sharp objects, or have windows in my room because I'll get too distracted.
All right. Speaking of distraction, what has to happen now that Dan, I'm sure you run plenty of virtual meetings. Your content's virtual. What has to happen in a virtual meeting, right, for Dan Shinder to be engaged?
It's right in your name. You got to be engaging. So, one is, and I've spoken to people who don't feel like they have a sense of humor. They're not energetic. They don't have they're not animated. That's okay. When I say you got to make it fun, it's got to be enjoyable, and you have to include people. Don't like see this device right there, that megaphone. I used to use that to call for a sandwich, but it must be broken because the sandwich never comes. But you can't just megaphone and talk at people. You have to include them, have breakouts, have games, ask open-ended questions, get them involved, and they'll want more. They'll want to hang, and they'll ask you, when's your next one? I want to do that again. It's so important, even in training.
Yeah.
Even when you're training, you've got to involve them and make it an open discussion, not just get up there and professorial lecture everybody. No one cares about that. It's got to be fun, and you got to make them part of the process.
Yeah, so that led me to like my controversial stuff. And I got to tell you, I just watched a whole bunch of other professional presenters all year long.
I can't imagine what you do that's controversial. Go ahead. You got me on the edge of my seat now. See, it's working.
So in this case, right, my theory now is that I allocate half of my time in a keynote or a breakout for the audience to talk.
That's brilliant. Like, remember what Bob used to do? Bob
Right.
Pike, who we talked about in the opening, our mutual friend who introduced us, used to use Umu, which
Yeah.
is a live in time polling program where you can ask your audience something and bam, it gives you and them all the results. That's engaging. That's having them participate. I think it's brilliant that you do that.
And I got to tell you though, there's just still so few. There's still so many people who start talking. They talk for 45 minutes straight, right? They think that you should talk for 38 minutes and have 7 minutes of Q&A, right? It's like, why don't you just take that Q&A, shove it in the middle? The conversation is the most important, interesting thing. And here's the other part, right? It is impossible for Dan Shinder to be not engaged if I'm asking him or he's answering a question, right?
Right.
His attention is here. He knows the class is watching him, that people are
Right.
used to that. And so it sounds so simple, but nobody's doing it right now, Dan.
You know what? The gold in that is that almost nobody's doing that.
I
And
know.
folks, if you want to stand out and knock people's socks off in a meeting, do that because it'll be an experience that they're not used to having. See, that's just like in going back to the content marketing. Every single post that we do,
Hmm.
except for memes, whether it's event coverage, a documentary, an interview, or the fun stuff that we post, every post starts with a question because
Right,
it
right.
shows, and they're open-ended questions. It shows the audience that we're welcoming them. We want your input. Be part of this experience with us, and it piques their interest and makes them read the rest of it or watch the video or whatever. And that's exactly what you're talking about. When I do my trainings, after each section of each module,
Right.
I ask, who has questions about that? I don't want them having this spinning plate of something that didn't make sense that they're waiting half an hour to have to ask a question. And by then they look at their note like, what was this question? I don't even, it'll have more context. The answer will have
Yes.
more context when they can ask it, when they have the question, literally.
Well, and it goes into this other part, right? We talked about some ADD or ADHD. It's like,
Yeah.
if you every 10 minutes, like after a block of something you taught, right? Now you say just ask questions. And even if it's 3 or 4 minutes, they're context relative. They should be ones that are coming up, right? If you wait too long, then you're right. It doesn't make any sense. Like, why do I want to ask this question?
Yeah.
And the other part, it trains everybody to like, Dan doesn't actually really want me to ask questions, even though he's
Right.
saying the words, but he's not giving the time, right?
It becomes a one-way street, and that never works. It never
Yeah.
works. It's got to be engaging by having them participate, and you're also providing a more valuable experience because people are going to learn from other people's,
Yeah.
like I say to my masterclass right now. I say, hope come to the Q&A session, because I do sessions of just Q&A for 90 minutes once
Yeah.
a month. And I say, come to that and you'll learn from other people's questions and maybe even my answers. I don't know. But I tell them, even if you don't have a question, show up, because you'll learn from someone else's question. And it always inevitably sparks a question that they didn't even come with, because then you start down a path and they go, oh, so what about, it's really important. And it shows that you care. If you teach something, if you
Right.
hold a virtual meeting of any kind, you got to care. But, going back to what you said about people talking for 38 minutes and leaving 2 minutes for, questions or whatever, I really think that people are taught how to speak, not how to listen, and not how to create engagement. And a lot of people have a bit of myopia going and think that their stuff is so valuable that they just need to brain dump for the whole hour or whatever it is. Um, and don't know how to give the aspect of value of including their audience. And quite frankly, some people just like to hear themselves talk, and we all know those people. So people watching this, when you ask someone a simple question, they go on and on. Okay, so first I was born, then I went to, and you just ask them, what'd you have for dinner last night? You mentioned you were going out with your wife. What?
Oh,
Long talkers.
long talkers. Yeah. They're learning from each. Oh, here's what I really wanted to share this too, Dan. I learned this also from my coach and one of our speakers, Shiraz Babu, who was in my conference. Right? They do kind of a lot of personal work, and one of the things they talk about is when you're doing transformational work, right? When you one is they work on the easiest person in the room, and here's the reason why, because you're actually secretly working on all the other people in the room who are listening,
Yeah.
right? And so that's what, so like they going through this change, and even though this person, it sounds really vulnerable, it sounds deep and all this other stuff, it turns out all the people who didn't volunteer, who are listening to this conversation, quite often have the bigger change.
Yes, and they're going through the exercise as the person, the trainer or whoever's leading it through that easier person. Yeah.
I think it's safer too, because it's the disassociation, saying, "Oh, you're not talking about me, so I don't have to put up any barriers."
Right.
Now,
Right. And
right, yeah,
without bringing them in, you'll never learn who that easiest person is. You got to have interaction, engagement, and say, okay, when I get to the exercise, I'm going with Ellen, because she's been vocal, she's asked the right questions,
right.
and it's in, and there's a comfort between you on stage and that person, or the virtual stage. um that's genius, absolutely.
Okay, so what is one or two of the ways that Dan Shinder creates psychological safety in a community? Because again, people, you said, started sharing, like, drumming got me through fill in the blank, and that's a give,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
You do
absolutely.
that.
The number one way is going back to when I was holding this up and said, even though they're all following you because this is your thing, that doesn't make, you've got one too. That doesn't mean they're all the same people, even though they want the same thing from you. So when you vary the content and the message to reach all these different psychographic and personas in your audience, when it resonates with them, that's the first step. If you
Resonate.
only have one or two ways of speaking to people and advertising this, you're going to miss out on a lot of people. So I'll give an example. If I had a boot brand, Dan's
Yeah.
Boot, get the boot. If all my videos advertising the boot showed senior citizens like me, the younger folks, 18 to 24, 25 to 34, would say, oh, that boot's for old people, I'm going on a real hike. But if all my videos only showed 18 to 24-year-olds, the seniors like me would say, oh, well, those boots are for the kids. I need boots for my high mileage wrinkle ass feet. Without having both, you'll never get both as clients or followers. So I really believe that knowing really who your market is, if I sell this, my market isn't people who want this. It's people who want this, who are, then fill in the blank. They're women who are teachers between 35 and 44 and 55 to 64. You got to drill it down and then create content that'll resonate with them. Watch TV, folks. I don't watch much TV, but on YouTube, when you see commercials
Yes.
and you see a commercial for the same product or brand,
Oh,
you'll never only see the same commercial.
right.
My wife and I are mixed race. We're are we? Yeah, she's a woman, I'm a man.
I
No,
had to
my
think about
wife's black, and we notice more and more and more that there's a lot of mixed race couples of different races being used in advertising,
right,
whether it's white and Asian,
right.
black and white, on and on, Asia minor, Asia major. There, and it's more and more prevalent, but no one will have just one type of group of people persona or the way of presenting
Yeah.
this product.
All right, I'm going to introduce something new with you, and I want to give a shout out to Ka Hurst and our good friend, super streamer Erica Bates, who's watching us on Facebook Live.
Thanks for watching.
This is the speed round.
Uh-oh.
Okay, yeah, rapid fire. Answer these as fast as possible. Favorite drummer?
Purple. Oh, John Bonham.
Whoa. Favorite drum kit?
My big blue one.
Drumsticks. Favorite drumsticks?
A head, 5As, nylon tip. They're made of some sort of alloy.
They're probably made from an alien species.
They're made of unobtainium. It's hard to find.
That's a good one. I haven't used that. Coolest drum moment in your life?
I know it's rapid fire, but it's either seeing John Bonham in person when I saw Led Zeppelin, my first concert, or one of the many times I got to play with some of my biggest idols on the show or something like that. Yeah.
Largest scale drumming moment?
Largest what?
Largest scale. Number of people drumming at the same time.
Oh, we have something from China that has, I think, 1,600 drummers playing at the same time.
Best solo drumming moment?
For me, it's John Bonham. The song remains the same, not the movie, but the vinyl soundtrack, that version of Moby Dick.
I'm going to re-ask this question for you. Your best solo drumming moment, you playing drums with nobody there.
Oh, with nobody there. With nobody there?
That's right.
But is it a drum solo or me just playing with nobody there?
No, you playing drums by yourself.
Oh,
Solo.
it's when I go down to my studio and I'm not broadcasting, I'm just playing for fun. And I put on some of my favorite music, old Yes, ELP, Genesis, Led Zeppelin, and I just blow my brains out playing just for fun. It's not work, it's just for fun.
Best rhythm you heard from somebody else?
Best rhythm?
Yeah.
Ooh. One of them is Fool in the Rain by John Bonham playing the shuffle, Bernard Purdie's shuffle.
You are a Bonham fan. Okay, and here's the best one. Soundtrack of your life.
It's narrow it down to a band or an album or
the soundtrack of your life. You can answer it however you want.
It's classic rock and prog rock. It's Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, Jethro Tull, Genesis, ELP, Yes, Gentle Giant. Yeah, all of that. That's my jam. I'm right. Old school. I'm seriously old school.
Let's give it up for Dan Shinder. There we go.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, John. Thank you so much.
I'm gonna here. Let's close with this. What do you see for the future of virtual?
I hope it's not what I do hear sometimes. People burnt out on Zoom. Like, pretty sure you and I certainly was doing virtual training and meetings long before COVID. But there's a lot of people that didn't even have a webcam before COVID who are like this new Hallmark made up holiday, Zoom fatigue. Come on. When people say they want to do a phone call for the first time we're going to meet, they're not my client. I'm not doing it. It's face to face. There's nothing better than this other than sitting with somebody, sharing a meal, breaking bread, whatever it is, going for a walk. So I hope it's not that, but I hope that it's going to be people using more tools like your background, flying in videos like we do on Drum Talk TV. When I interview someone, we always fly in a video, we show the new cover of the album, a bit more engaging content by using multimedia. And it's easy to do. You don't have to be a huge techie, to do it, whether it's OBS Studio like we use or StreamYard or, there's a bunch of them. And I hope that that's going to be the trend where more and more people will jump on board and realize they can't just be a talking head. Engage people, do polls, do quizzes, ask people to answer questions, and fly in multimedia and demonstrate
Beautiful.
things online. Yeah.
You said a lot of things here, Dan. If you want people to remember one thing from this interview, what's your one thing for today?
Take my marketing course. No, I'm kidding.
I love you get the 30% here. Just nail it right
Yeah,
now.
yeah. No, it would be, don't do what everyone else is doing just because that's what they're doing. Really take a step back, either learn from someone, whether it's me or someone else, try things out, but stop copying the person failing the test. I really think that that's important, and be true to your brand and know who you serve and be as overt about that as you want to get the point across of what the benefits are of what you offer.
And I'm just going to add this, Dan, again, in respect for our very good friend Bob Pike.
Yeah.
Sometimes give and expect absolutely nothing in return, because quite
Oh,
often some of the best stuff in life happens that way. By the way, Dan was the in-person producer. I was the virtual producer for Bob's Celebration of Life. That video is actually one of my top rated videos too, because it was content about like no one else could get it, and it was so authentic.
yeah.
I tell people, everyone, it's like that was a masterclass in speaking that you needed to be there to watch, and now you can actually go back and watch it. I'll post a link on my
Yeah,
social.
we had, I think, I'm going to say 50-ish people in person in Bob's house. And for context, folks, Bob was still alive. It was a living memorial, living celebration of life. We had
That's
about
a
50,
cool. By the way, that's a cool idea too. Do
yeah,
something, right? Even who was it? Oh, come on, who was it? Said I'm going to steal this idea. Ken Blanchard says I'm going to steal this
yeah.
idea.
Let them enjoy it and see who Bob said he wanted to do. So we see who shows up that cares. But we had about 50 people in person. There were how many people online? Like 300 or so?
Oh, it's like at least 150 to 200.
Yeah,
Some of them as
that's
far as
huge.
Japan that he did a lot of work in, and they just
Yeah.
so cool to see all the different places
And the
he.
people in person were able to see on a big 80-inch screen John and everyone that was tiled on Zoom online, and they were able to see us. It was a fascinating experience. And to do it for someone that we love so much and have other people there online and in person that we love for that mutual thing was really remarkable. I had never done anything like that for that purpose, indeed.
Well, Dan, I hope to look forward to doing more with that, and I feel like I should take your marketing class too. So I hope to be a student there. Dan, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for watching, whether you watched on the live or you're watching the archive.
There we go. All right. We've been talking with Dan Shinder, who just says the one key message today: do something different. Do something different. Well, you want to do something different here. Make sure and subscribe if you want to hear about these next videos, or share, or LinkedIn, or hit a comment. Oh, he's told me too. Number one thing you could do is comment on this video. Let us know what you thought. Let us know what you'd like to see in future interviews. If you want to check in some other interviews here, we have a new podcast releasing every Wednesday, every week. And most important, Dan told me to engage you. If you want to be the next person on the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast, go to this link up here, engagingvirtualmeetings.com/meet, select interviews, select the best hour of your day, and you too can be featured here on the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. Until next time, we'll see you there.
Going star people and keep